Hey, today we are going to make a cannabis coconut macaroon. This is really good if you like the feel of cannabis, but you don't necessarily like the flavor. This is a really good recipe to hide that flavor in. I find that two things are really good in hiding the flavor of cannabis, and it's mint and almond. We're going to use almond today in it. It's super duper easy. And this one is not so much of measuring as looking at the texture of it, ready to put it on the cookie sheet. So we are going to use coconut, just plain coconut. It doesn't have to be sweetened. Sweetened condensed coconut milk. You can also use the regular sweetened condensed milk. I just find that this gives it a little bit more of a nutty flavor, which helps mask the flavor of cannabis. We've got some powdered sugar, almond extract, and of course cannabis that we're going to put all together. We're going to roll them in a ball. We're going to freeze them. When they're finished being frozen, cover them in chocolate. So let's start. Let's do about a cup and a half of coconut. It doesn't really have to be spot on, since this is going to be more of a feel it out and look and make sure that it's hard enough, but you also want to make sure that you have enough sugar in it. We're going to do about 1/3 of a cup of coconut condensed milk. Take it out. And then I'm going to add 1/8 to 1/4, depending on how much you like the flavor of almond. Cannabis butter has a very strong smell and flavor to it. I err on the side of more of 1/4 of a teaspoon. Your choice though. And then we'll put in some canna butter. Okay, that's 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. Let's do 3. I'm feeling good. Now, the reason why I say it depends more on how it looks is that you want to have it look more thick so you can push it together and make little balls with it. If it's too runny, it's just going to run off your platters. Let's mix all of this in first and see what we get. Also, it's going to depend on how much cannabis butter you want to put in. The more you put in, obviously, the runnier it'll get, the more coconut you're going to have to put in. This looks a little dry, so I'm probably just going to add another tablespoon of my sweetened condensed milk, or coconut milk. Put that in there again. And then I'm going to take my powdered sugar and I'm going to put maybe about 1/4 of a cup. Just give it really nice sweet flavor. It smells really good. It smells like an almond joy. If we look at it now and if I show you, you can see that it's really thick. You know, you can move it. You can make it into balls. It pushes down. There's no runniness to it whatsoever. We'll start rolling it out onto a cookie sheet. So I'm all set up again for this step. You need a pan and you need parchment paper. I always like to measure out my cannabis to know exactly what I'm getting. This time around, I'm gonna shoot between 8-9 grams for a ball, which is roughly about 1/2 teaspoon for each coconut ball. And I've got a little bit of water here. This does get super sticky on your fingers, and I find that if you wet your fingers and then try to make the ball, it's a lot easier getting it off and putting it onto the parchment paper. So let's just start. Got it all zeroed out. This one's at 7. That's good. I'll take that. And I'll put it right onto the parchment paper. And I'll just kind of keep going. This is the part that probably takes the longest. You can put it on there. That's right at 7 too. So they don't have to be super tight balls when you freeze them. That's when you can go through afterwards and roll them up really nice. But just right now, we want to get the grams weighed correctly. Don't really worry about how it looks at this point. And that's what you're going to do for the whole thing. Okay, so I've got about 2 more left to make. This batch that I made here is roughly making about 36 treats, which isn't too bad for a cup and a half of coconut. So if you look at them, they're in little balls, and then we'll just put these right into the freezer. Let them freeze for a couple hours, and then when you take them out, you can roll them in your hands and make them a really nice ball. Don't press too hard. You don't want it to be really compact, but just a nice light roll. And then after that, we'll coat them in chocolate and they'll be ready to go. So this is the double boiler. I've got my chocolate in there. I've got water in the bottom, and we're going to slowly melt this chocolate. Today's the next day. I ended up actually just keeping the coconut balls in the freezer, and I just took them out, and now I'm just gently rolling them in my hand. And I took the chocolate and I double boiled it. I just put it in over with a pan of water, put the chocolate in another pot, and then heated it until it completely melted. And I'll just take these balls, lightly roll them, and I'll put them in the chocolate. I was doing a few before, putting them in the chocolate. And then I'll lightly cover them with chocolate, and we'll put them on the pan, and we'll put them back in the fridge, and they'll harden up, and they're done, they're finished. Make sure they're covered, really covered. And again, if you don't like chocolate, you don't have to do this step. If you like coconut, they taste really good without the chocolate. So it's no big deal if you don't want the chocolate, but I like chocolate. You could even stick an almond in these. One almond, push it into the coconut, and then load it up with chocolate too. Those are really delicious as well. I would recommend lowering your cannabis level in it, just so you could have a couple and not just one. Now I'm gonna put these into the freezer or the fridge and let them harden, and then we'll put them on a plate, and they look great and they're just delicious. Okay, so I just took them out of the freezer. They were in there for about 10 minutes. They're already set, and I'm just gonna put them on a plate so we can serve them. I just finished doing all of the balls and put them on a plate. They are the perfect size. You can pop one in your mouth. They're really rich, really, really creamy. And they hide the cannabis really well. So if you're not into having that cannabis flavor in your mouth, this is the perfect coconut chocolate ball for you. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe.